Hey guys, bonus episode of the Joshi Pod, and there's only one person I should talk to today. And the reason I should talk to him, we'll get into it in a minute, but you're going to hear the reason why he's the person I should talk to today. Justin Knipper, welcome to the Joshi Pod. His song, by the way, guys, is the opening song. He's the Joshi Pod theme at the start of every episode. He's the one that produced that for me. Welcome to the show, Justin.
Thanks, Eric. Nice to see you 1 year later.
Yes. So I met Justin, of all places. It's a small world. It's a small building. Ichigaya Chocolate Square.
That's right. Very small building.
We just so happened to be in the same place at the same time, and we ended up at Ichigaya Chocolate Square to see a Gatoh Move show. What brought you to Ichigaya Chocolate Square?
My 2 feet. No, I was in town. I was in Japan during that time anyway, so I was going to a few shows while I was in town. My wife was doing some stuff, and while she was doing work-related stuff, I was doing my own quote-unquote work-related stuff, going to shows and covering shows. But yeah, it was a show that was on a free day in my schedule, and I'd always liked to go. I'd always liked to have seen Chocolate Square. Actually, the first show I had ever seen in Japan was a Gatoh Move show, but that was in 2014. But it wasn't at Chocolate Square. It was like a joint show with LLPW, and it was at Kandori's Dojo. Show with Kandori's Dojo. So it had a totally different vibe. Chocolate Square, I mean, it was just, to me in my head, it's something I always saw and go, wow, that's a really cool place to do wrestling. There's so many little things you can change up and freshen up about the style, and you can make it your own, like the girls did at the show we went to.
And you reviewed that for a website, correct?
Yeah, I did a write-up on fightgamemedia.com for it. It was cool. And Emi, ahead of the time, I asked, I inquired about press, and she was great. She was awesome and accommodating. I'm holding, you can't see it, but I'm holding the pen she lent me that day to take my notes. It's my Emi Sakura pen. Yeah, it's a white, I'll send you a picture later. It's just, it was funny because I had everything, but for some reason, I think my pen fell out on the subway. So I asked her if she had a pen, but it was really bad timing because people were about to enter the show. So she ran into the office and she grabbed a huge handful of pens and she goes, "Here you go," more or less. She's like, "Here, I gotta go." She didn't say it like that, but I was very impressed with her prompt, accurate, and abundant pen thing that she gave me. Yeah, I was impressed. It was cool. It was really cool.
You're actually in the background of like almost every picture I've taken because we were like kind of catty corner to each other. So you're in the background of almost every single picture I took during the post-show talk and stuff.
Oh yeah, because I was kind of behind the soundboard.
Yeah, and I was kind of over by the entrance to the door.
Right.
So yeah, you're like seriously in every single picture you're in the background back there.
I'm really sorry about that.
No, it makes it for a cool story because who would have known? Yeah, I didn't know you. We didn't know each other at the moment. So
it's cool. Like that place, like even where you were sitting, where you have more room, you don't have room. Like no matter where you are, it's so tight. And where Amy put me, I wanted to stay away because I'm trying to watch everything in the crowd too. But I mean, at Chocolate Square, you are in the crowd. You're part of the show sometimes. I don't know if you remember, but during Mei Suruga's match with Takanishi, she did a rope break, but she just grabbed my hand.
Yeah.
I was writing and I was all flustered and I thought she was giving me a handshake, so I was saying "Yoroshiku onegaishimasu," and she was like, "Break!" Yeah, the show was great. The show was great. Do you have any memories of it? Particular memories of the matches?
I do, because Emi saw me and saw that I had a Bull Nakano t-shirt on. And she asked my name, and then she asked me who my favorite wrestler was. And she was trying to do her introduction in English a little bit, talking to me quite a bit, like looking at me and talking to me. And I felt embarrassed. It's like, no, just do your show in Japanese. That's fine. It's fine. But no, she kept trying to talk to me in English, which was nice, you know. And then when she asked who my favorite wrestler was, I said Bull Nakano. And she was like, okay, you know, she's like, Bull's finisher? I'm like, yeah, I guess, or Bull submission, something like that, she said. And she's like, the guys are too big. I can't do it. So we'll find somebody to do it. So she ended up having Saki do it on to Mitsuru
Oh, yeah, okay.
during the show. And Saki like just looked at me and smiled and you know, just the personal, you know, that's Ichigaya, right? But it was extra special for me, I thought, because, you know, they catered to me, which is embarrassing, but nice at the same time, you know? So it was, that's my biggest memory of that show.
It's total Japanese style customer service. It's pure fan service, pure customer service. She's great about that. And there are other, a lot of Joshi companies and other smaller indie companies that you probably went to. You probably got that vibe too, yeah? Like they're coming to impress you. Like there's, I don't know how the translation exactly goes, but there's a saying in Japanese that translates essentially to the customer is God.
Yeah, and that's what I talk about a lot too. It's customer service.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
it's 100% customer service, and they take care of their customers, and with the meet and greets and all that kind of stuff. It's customer service. It's pretty basic in a way, but it's something that goes a long way when you do it right.
Yeah, and I think just the phrase that we have to use in English, customer service, we have a connotation in our head. Like it means something different. I think what we're talking about, it's like the main priority for a lot of the entertainment companies and a lot of wrestling companies is making the fans happy, especially if it's in a small place. I mean, you kind of have to. We're essentially breathing on each other. And I think a lot of what keeps the companies afloat in Japan is they usually have a hardcore following that they're really loyal and they spend money and they keep those companies floating upwards. So I think there's no other choice really but for Emi's group and other groups to treat the fans with that much respect.
But I don't feel like I'm a quote unquote mark when I'm there either. You know, sometimes you go to shows, other places, you feel like a mark.
Yeah, because I don't feel like anybody's trying to hide anything from us.
Yeah.
Let's just use Gatoh Move for example. Like, it's a really different experience than any other wrestling show that I've been to. It's definitely wrestling, but it's also like you can't lie when you're performing at Chocolate Square, because the match with Takanishi and Meisuga was so technically sound, and me being able to watch it so closely made me appreciate so much more the craft of what both of them were doing, especially Takanishi, who was really technically sound. You're seeing the impact, you're seeing how holds and sequences are supposed to look. Especially, we've seen tons of wrestling, we watch tons of wrestling. We know how things should look or shouldn't look, kind of by instinct. Most fans do, right? Especially if you watch a lot of wrestling. When you see it so closely and how accurate and crisp and real, not real, but really talented it is, it makes you appreciate it so much more. And I don't know how to describe the venue other than it's just like an old office building that has a mat, right? It's like there's a kitchen which you can see probably like beyond. If you're watching the match, if you just pop your head up, you can probably see the kitchen and sink nearby. And how could you compare it to any like office space, like a size, like a square meter? It's quite small.
It's very small, and it wouldn't pass a fire code in America.
No way. But another cool thing about the experience too is that it has a kind of a storefront, shop front. So you get a lot of people just walking by, checking it out. So it seems like they're always trying to appeal to the casual fan too. Like, it's very inviting, ultimately.
Oh yeah. So then after the show, I'm standing out front, kind of. I guess they kind of clear everybody out, and then they set up for merchandise after they clear everybody out, they set up the same room. They take the mat up and put the tables down to set up for merchandise. And that's when Emi was outside, and you and I ran into each other outside as well. We introduced ourselves to each other, and you greeted Emi after the show as well. And that's when I had my chat with her. And I don't know if you remember that or not, but you probably don't. I don't think she remembers, but
I remember it clearly, actually. And I've been kind of waiting for a chance to talk to you in person about it, but because I heard on at least one or two at least one of the Joshi podcasts from a couple of months ago, I think you told the story. And the way you told the story, I was listening to it. I remember I was walking home from the grocery store, and I'm like, the way you told it was exactly 1000% how it happened. Like, so whoever's listening out there, Eric is like, that's not just like some nice like story to sound, but it really happened. I know where I was standing. You were standing to my left, Emi was on my right, and you were really impressed with the show. And you said, I thought you were being polite. Like, I really want to get involved. I don't remember exactly what you said, but you wanted to get involved and do something with Joshi wrestling. And I was like, okay, that's cool. And then a month later, you had the podcast going, and I was like, oh, that's cool. And then before we started, I'm like looking at all your shows that you've done in the past year. It's like, holy, this is the real deal. And it started at September 13th, Gatoh Move show.
Yeah, and what I told Emi was, I'm going to find a way to tell the world about Gatoh Move, and her instant answer was, how?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know yet, but I'm going to find a way to do it.
But would you say, I mean, since that show till now, I would say Gatoh Move / Choco Pro / Emi and Riho, like, their popularity, or just at least general awareness, is a lot higher than it was when we were at that show, right?
Oh, night and day difference, I think. Especially internationally, night and day difference.
I mean, it has to be AEW. That's the first thing that really brought everything. It has to be, right? But I think from that show, there was a little buzz because people talk because they put on good shows. And I remember I heard that when it was in January, when everybody went to go see the Tokyo Dome show, people would stay for the week and go around Tokyo and watch different shows. And a lot of people went to Chocolate Square, and I heard it was like 60-70% foreigners at a couple of the shows.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting because it's appealing to a certain market of wrestling fan that wants something alternative or wants to check out something that's really not the norm, which is cool. And it's cool that we have that other flavor available.
And I think they were ahead of the curve too, as far as having English content, because they had Pumi doing the commentary on YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
and then I think Aki being there now is a wonderful tool for them to use, not only as a performer but as a person who can instantly interpret and translate for them and do shows on YouTube and stuff and translate and put out English content. Because that's what I told Emi too when I met with her this past March. She's asking me, Eric, this was off mic. She's like, with Aki, she was like, Eric, what should we be doing to grow our company? And I told her, keep pumping out English content. And
I agree.
And they have, I mean, I'm not taking credit for anything because I'm sure she already had all that in her mind or whatever, but and it's funny because I was there in March and I got to go to the other side of Ichigaya Chocolate Square into the back room and do some interviews and stuff.
Ooh.
Yeah, Emi let me in. So Emi, I think,
the kitchen.
Yeah, she let me in to interview some of her people. So, she's done a whole lot for the podcast. Which, one, she inspired the podcast, and two, she opened her door to me to be able to interview her talent at their facility. So it was nothing but gratitude for Emi as far as that goes. But yeah, and that was even before Choco Pro. I mean, that was right when the pandemic was hitting. I wasn't even sure I was going to get home or not. But yeah, that's even before Choco Pro. So I'm looking forward to talking to her again about Choco Pro, about the pivot from Gatoh Move to Choco Pro. But yeah, no, that was a special day. And we got to meet, and we talked about meeting at the Stardom show. You were going to introduce me to Fumi Saito at the Stardom show.
That's right. So that was the last September's the Cinderella
5-star.
5-star Grand Prix, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was the final show, and I saw you before the show, and I was meeting Fumi there, and we waited around. We waited around for sure. We were waiting for you right next to TGI Fridays in front of the entrance. But it was a while, and I think I talked later, and you said you waited till the end when all of like you were waiting to meet Hana and all the other stars. I think there was a line.
Yeah, I really wanted to meet Hana Kimura that day.
Yeah, I wish I had your number. I could have like seen what was up, but we were just we had bounds.
That's okay. No, that's what. No,
next time,
I felt
sure.
guilty. I felt guilty at the time, but in hindsight, I'm very thankful for what I did.
Oh, absolutely. I know what you mean. That was a great show too. I learned a lot at that show. I got to meet Rossi briefly right before. Everybody was great, and there's a huge difference when you go to a Stardom show. At least last year, Stardom compared to the other companies right now, other Joshi companies, the production level. Just not talking about the wrestling, just talking about like production and like programming. There's definitely like a much more professional vibe over in Stardom, and I think that's one of their huge benefits with the company is that it's really presentable. Whereas there's other companies that are in Japan right now, they're great, the product is great, but the way they're run is just short-staffed. They're not big productions, so it's really hard to get all those materials that you really need, those items and elements that you need to make the show not just good, but presentable around the globe too. Like you were saying with English, dude, I think it's so important with Japanese wrestling right now, and it's tough because Japanese, along with like Finnish and Hungarian, are the three hardest languages to learn. It's not a language that, unfortunately, I wish it was a romance language where you can kind of just jump in and people kind of get at least more vibes of what's going on. But the barrier of English is huge. So the fact that Gatoh Move was using Pumi and now Bali, and they're just going for a more international thing. It's important if people, or rather if companies want to grow outside of Japan.
And I think having like for Ice Ribbon, they have Yappy there, who's bilingual as well, and she's a value I think to Ice Ribbon as well. I really think that every company should try. I mean, it's easier said than done, but to find somebody that can be the bilingual person to help if they want to grow internationally. Some people are happy just being what they are, right? But if they have aspirations to grow internationally and do that kind of thing, then I think they need to find a tool, an American or English, not even to be an American, just an English speaking tool to help them. And I hate to say tool, it's probably not the right word, but
I know what you mean. Like, it's tough because I don't want to just boil it down to more companies need to get more English language program. It's because it really isn't that easy to come by in Japan. Or if it is, it could be a pain in the ass. Or if it is, it could be really expensive, and smaller companies are not going to spend money on that. Like that's not what a company that is drawing 200-300 people per show. They're not thinking about these huge marketing campaigns. They're just trying to get people in the door. So like, it's an issue, but I think it's going to be one that's going to have to be solved over the years. It's not going to be like Snap. I think bigger companies like New Japan might have to kind of set the tone, introduce ideas. I don't know.
But again, that's why I think Emi's again ahead of the curve. She's made it work, quickly and successfully. I think. I mean, they're not making money hand over fist, but they're surviving. They're putting on multiple shows a week, and you see the donations online they're getting, and Patreons and all that kind of stuff as well. So they've got something special going there.
They're surviving, yeah, and it's cool. They're tearing up their own path. It's the Gatoh Move / Choco Pro / Emi Sakura path. I like that, like Emi and Kikutaro and Kyoko Kimura and a lot of the other like nomadic wrestlers who went all over the world. They went all over Japan, but they went to Mexico and they went to the States, and they learned how to apply what's going on to the scene today. And you can tell who's been around the block, and you can tell which companies kind of want to stay like how it is right now. And there are companies like Gatoh Move that want to push forward and just try new stuff and try to make people happy in different ways.
Yeah, and I find it interesting because I've tried to help some people set up pro wrestling tea stores here in the States. Like, well, I don't want any money from them or anything. I'm just trying to help them make some extra money, just, suggesting and talk to them about it. And some of them are just seem so against, even doing something like that, to even having a pro wrestling tea store to make some extra money that way.
Yeah, I'm sure it's case by case, and like each company, I'm sure has a certain kind of rule for the wrestler that I don't know. It depends company to company. Some companies might make the merchandise for their talent, so they're only allowed to get a percentage of the company's merchandise. I'm just speculating too.
Yeah,
it could be different.
Even like some of the freelancers and stuff are kind of skeptical. I think, and that's one thing I've learned doing the podcast is earning trust over there too for people who are skeptical. So it's which I totally understand why they're skeptical in this and that, but it'd be nice for them to. I'm selfishly wanting to do it because I want to buy their T-shirts.
I think the bigger idea of just having companies like Gatoh Move and other Japanese companies becoming more accessible, it's going to have to start from the top somewhere, like AEW or New Japan or WWE. It's going to have to it has to start somewhere with a budget, and then it has to be established over a couple of years. And I think when there's like a safety net created, I think that's when the smaller companies will eventually. I hope we're going to be at a point where there's more English or more foreign language translation. But then again, there are a lot of foreigners that are, studying and learning Japanese, and I'm trying to do that. And I suck at Japanese. It's really hard, but there is like a need for the information to be out there in English and to be correct, because unfortunately the internet, the wrestling internet has, I started using it like 1999 like the early 2000s. Okay. So we're about 20 years of history on the internet. And when you dive into history of the smaller companies around Japan, it starts to get murky. And then when you read it, the Japanese and you compare it to what was written in English, it's just not the same. Mm-hmm. So like the narrative that a lot of people think about, I'm being very general here, mm-hmm. but basically I think what I'm trying to say is that if the correct ideas are out there in English, I think people will have at least a better idea or grasp on not what's going on in Japan, but how Japanese fans see it. I think fans in the States or fans overseas and fans in Japan see something like Gatoh Move. They see it from like two sides, but they're different sides. And I think with the English translations, you can kind of bridge the gap and end up enjoying stuff like that more with a little bit of Japanese literacy or English info or something. It's just tough, and it's a lot of legwork, and these companies don't have that many people. It's great that Bali is there for Gatoh Move. That helps a lot.
I think that if I spoke Japanese, my podcast would have been so much more than it is. It's the language barrier for me and the trust barrier for me. Just sending requests to people and having them not sound silly or whatever, it was a challenge for me. But I wish I spoke Japanese, and it's my fault for not speaking Japanese. But but again, on the other side of that, because I was reading online all the stuff and reading Wikipedia, and now finding out by talking to these people I was reading their Wikipedia on that their Wikipedia is wrong.
Right. Yeah.
That
happens. Yeah.
So I've been trying. That's one of the reasons I've pushed to go get an Arisa Nakajima on the show, or to get other people, Bull Nakano on the show, and different people to talk and tell us their real history. Tell us exactly what Tsukasa Fujimoto. Find out exactly from their mouths exactly how they got into the business of wrestling and why they got into the business of wrestling, and not just read it on the English speaking Wikipedia, which is wrong.
Yeah, Wikipedia is going to be what it is. That you can't trust it, and it's cool that it's beyond cool that you're getting wrestlers like Nakajima and Tsukasa Fujimoto, because like in the 90s, the golden silver age or whatever you want to call it with Aja Kong and Manami Toyota, no one really had like an in to what the wrestlers were thinking. We were just watching the wrestling simply. But I mean, imagine having the wrestling and having the ability to absorb podcasts and really get the full stories of what's going on. I think it's like watching TV in black and white versus watching TV in HD. It's the same thing, but if you get those little bits of information, if you understand them, it really helps enhance your experience and you have a great time. And I think what you're doing is so, like, it's really important. Like, you don't have to be like a journalist or anything. It's just you're talking to the people and you're getting the answers, and we're going to need that in the future. It's cool for now, and we're learning about them now. But I think this podcast is really cool because we'll always have it. So, like, people like me, like writers, I'll have to use this. I want to use resources like this instead of having to translate old articles or, like, just generally use Japanese when I don't have to. But other than that, yeah.
No, I appreciate you saying that.
No.
But it's been a challenge, because Joshi politics is real.
Oh, yeah.
And kayfabe is real, still in Japan as well, too. And I started this podcast with 0 contacts. I mean, I had no contacts at all, so it's been, I'm trying to lay the groundwork for somebody after me to do it better than me. To open the door a little bit so other people who are more talented than I am can push through and do it better. But I
don't think it's like that. Dude, you did a great job. But I think the thing that I love the most is that you present Joshi wrestling seriously, in a serious way, and not in an overly serious way. Like some of the matches that I've seen in the past couple of years, not over my life, but just in the past couple of years, some of the best wrestlers in the world are over there right now. Really, I'm not exaggerating. I'm not. It's like, you've seen it, man. They're very good, and it's a different style sometimes. And I think the only way people are going to take it seriously is if we have serious platforms for it. And I think people like Asuka and Kairi Sane are doing great things for Joshi. Seems like it through WWE, but for the hard facts, we need this podcast, and it's good. And I hope people. I don't like what you said about. You're good, man. You don't have to get anybody to improve. Just keep doing it.
I've actually decided to stop doing it.
What?
At the end of next month.
Is this a news drop right now?
No, I actually posted something a little bit earlier this week on Twitter, like in the middle of the night.
Oh, dude, what a bummer.
Yeah, it's becoming, I mean, I have a day job. I have a 40-hour week day job, at least 40-hour week. I'm a salaried employee, so it's at least 40 hours a week.
Right.
But, and it's getting difficult finding people to come on. And the point where I'm talking to them is fun, but the fight, not the fight, but just the
PR part of it.
Yeah, it's time consuming, and it's difficult. And one of the problems for myself, I'll admit, I set the bar pretty high pretty early. And for me to try to keep getting people that are the quality that I think I should get, it's taking a toll on me. So I'm going to at least take a break, and maybe figure something else out later. But yeah, my plan is to do it. It launched October 31st of last year. I'm going to have it this run end on October 31st of this year.
You want to hear something really funny? That's when my wife and I got married. That's our anniversary. Oh, yeah. Well, then we'll celebrate, I guess. But yeah, you've done a lot, like in the past year, like I said, and it is important whether you stop or not. It's like people, not just me, but I know if I'm going to write certain articles that I've been kind of thinking in my head in the future, I know I'll have to go back and listen to some of your episodes because that is going to be the main English source. That's really important because there just aren't. And I was kind of speaking, Farah, she's been on your show, Japan Times. We were kind of talking about that. It's just there's not there's a lot of info out there. It's a lot of info, but there's just not enough English to keep up with it.
And
So
it's difficult to monetize too. I mean, for as much effort and time as you're going to put into doing something like that, I mean, it's hard to monetize it. I've made $0 doing this podcast, like $0. So you know, it's a lot of work to make $0 for as well.
it's a passion project. I mean,
Yeah.
you got cred. I think. I mean, this is it. This is the Joshi Pod, literally and figuratively.
But you know what I mean, as far as, you know, for,
Absolutely.
you know, because part of it's not gotten fun. You know, the part of chasing people down is not fun for me right now. So if I'm going to do something not fun, I'm going to work my 40-week job. You know, and it's just difficult. I don't want to end it, but my mental health probably needs a break, at least for a little bit.
Well, you know, it's also a very strange time for wrestling in general. There's just not that much going on. In Japan, I think it's busier than other places, but it's exhausting. I tell you what, it's for sure. But
Yeah, and also coordinating interpreters and all that kind of stuff too at the same times, and the time difference and all that good stuff too. It's just a lot. It's a lot to do.
well, I'm sure after a break you'll feel refreshed and come back and you'll interview, you know, Hiro to Sakura, because you have to at least do that one before you hang it up. That's the one I'm waiting for.
There's a few people coming up that, yeah, it's gonna be pretty interesting, that have agreed to do it. So I'm gonna go out with a bang. So there's gonna be some pretty talented people here in this next month or so.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. So enough about me. Talking about my own podcast on the podcast.
This is the origin story, though. This is important.
That's true, and then it's the person that was there when it started too. So
Yeah, I was the witness. I'll sign whatever I need to sign.
Yeah, sometimes I think people are thinking I'm BSing them when I say the story to them. It's like, no.
It's real. No, the way you described it on that one podcast was almost like very, very accurate. I would give you a Pulitzer. I could, but I can't. But it happened, and Emi was there too. So we were also talking about Emi's career for a little bit too.
Yeah.
Talking about she started with FMW as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I interrupted. What were we going to say?
No, when I went back there this past March and I interviewed Emi at Ichigaya, that I told her the story and she looked at me like I was crazy.
She's humble.
No, I don't think she remembers, and I don't blame her for remembering. I'm sure 1,000 people have come up and told her all kinds of crazy things, but she just looked at me like, what? Whatever. Which I loved. I loved it.
She's awesome.
Yeah, I loved it. So, Justin, how did you get into wrestling? How did wrestling become part of your life? How did it infect you?
Young age. I don't have any specific memories, but the first show I went to was in '91. I went with my dad, my brother, and my friends from across the street, Lamont and Lamont Jr. And we caught a show at the Knickerbocker Arena. It was supposed to be headlined by Sergeant Slaughter versus Hulk Hogan, but Hulk Hogan, he canceled. And at the time I was very young, I didn't understand that. But after further reading, I kind of understood the story more clearly. And I was more sour later, but that's neither here nor there. So that was the first show. But yeah, wrestling was always kind of around in my life on the TV Saturday mornings. My dad liked it. My uncle liked it. The earliest memories were...
Well, hold on. You said Knickerbocker Arena. That's in New York, right?
Yeah, Albany, New York. That's where I grew up. Schenectady, Albany, New York.
So that's WWE land, right?
It was, and still is, completely WWE territory. Because I'm surprised you know Knickerbocker. I don't know. It's called Times Union Center now. But that was, I think it opened in 1990. And WWF was one of the first companies to do shows there when it opened. There were some car shows, like fancy car shows. And I remember there were WWE shows to WWF. And, yep.
You know what's funny? I'm going to go on a tangent here a little bit.
Go for it.
Is that because of wrestling, I think my sense of geography is expanded more than most people's is.
Yeah. Yeah,
You
I
know,
think to an extent mine too, or maybe we had an advantage over other people in school. Like we knew where Nutley, New Jersey is,
but
just because.
we knew where Samoa was and Tonga was and
That's
Japan
true.
was, and
Samoa is like the only people who know. No, it's not the only people who know about Samoa. Wrestling fans tend to know about Samoa more quickly, and football fans do too. But yeah, Samoa's wrestling territory.
and that's what I always talk about, like just body parts too. Just hearing Gorilla Monsoon talking about body parts and stuff. Yeah, that kind of stuff is just like, yeah, I know more about the human anatomy than the average person because I watch wrestling.
Yeah, and who would know what a solar plexus is otherwise? Right.
Trapezoids and stuff when I was a kid.
Side salto. I liked side salto, and I love actually kind of about like okay about new or Japanese wrestling. Okay, I watched. They were a WCW Starrcade. They had the WCW guys. That was an early memory. But to tie it to what we're talking about now, there was this New Japan official video release that had English commentary with Gordon Soley on it. Like Jimmy Snuka was on the cover. I rented it when I was at my grandma's house, and it was all Gordon Soley calling matches, and he would say "supplé."
Yep.
He would say, "Yeah, you knew that was coming. You knew that was coming." But at a young age, man, that was funny. When I was a kid, I was like, "Why is he saying it like that?" But we learn a lot about linguistics, geography. Wrestling has a lot going on. I mean, Gatoh Move has even more physics jumping out of the windows.
I'm waiting for their battle royal to get, when they start throwing people out the windows.
Yeah,
A Royal Rumble would be fun too. Just seeing and just like standing outside, like when people are in line, just like waiting for their number to be called on the street.
Yeah, like I think some fans might get taken out if that were the case.
I think they'd love it. Some of those fans that are there every show would probably love it.
That's true too. Yeah,
because they laugh now when they get kicked. They love when they get kicked.
That's true. I think in Japan, fans are they indulge the wrestlers more if they want to go in the crowd and get rowdy because that's been the tradition. But actually, okay, here's a story from around this time last year. I was at a show in Shinjuku Face, Tokyo Championship Wrestling. It's Jimmy Suzuki. Jimmy Suzuki, the photographer, it's his company. Mm-hmm. And they did a show, and Leatherface was on the card. Whoever's doing Leatherface now. And the guy doing Leatherface, he had a chainsaw that was working. He ran right into the second row. People loved it. I didn't love it. I was very scared. I was very scared, to be honest with you. I jumped. I didn't jump. I kind of stood up really quickly and moved. But, this guy had his chainsaw, and the promoter's mother was sitting in the front row, and he was going to take her head off. That's like the line is blurred, to say the least, over there. Where I just don't think that would ever fly here.
In Mexico, it's kind of the same way too, because the lucha shows, they do flips and fly. They do lucha stuff, right? Mm. And they'll land in the second and third row, like right on top of people. They don't care. Nobody's getting sued down there.
That's true. Well, I think with what I've seen in Mexico, like the wrestlers and the fans, it's more like hockey. Like we'll let you guys fight until it's gone too far. I think it's a little more competitive between talent, fans, security, and so on. Where in Japan, there's people getting really excited that they're about to die. You should watch some old Big Japan, like 1995, 96 videos where like Leatherface and whomever were chasing people around with the chainsaw with the sparks going off, and people just move in a swarm. And they run from their seats, and it's one of those big open kind of gymnasium venues, and they're just running in a pack from Leatherface. I'm like, this is just a horror movie. And it's not beyond wrestling. It's just wrestling with a really different flavor.
Brody's nailed some people with a chain before, and Hanson's hit people with a cowbell, I'm sure, before.
Yeah. Sabu would punch people.
Yeah.
There was fire with the Sheik, Mr. Pogo. But I hope things eventually clear up so people can go back and visit and enjoy wrestling in Japan. Because it's really, if you're a fan, if you're already a Japanese wrestling fan, mark it on your list. I'm not even. It sounds cliche, maybe, but if you're missing out if you don't go, because once you go there, something clicks and you understand it more, but you feel it on a deeper level.
Oh yeah, and I tell people the same way, and people are like, "Oh, I'll never be able to go." I was like, "Yeah, when I was young and broke, I never went either." So I just, I worked and worked and worked and saved my money, and and got to go finally. So I was where those people were at now. The people that I interact with on Twitter and stuff, like, "Oh, it's never going to happen. It's unrealistic." I'm like, no, make it happen.
I think it's also because it's such a far away culture too. It's far, but it's not that far. But it's so different from a lot of other cultures. So it's easy to get like bogged down and go, man, I got to learn a lot of stuff. That's what, like, I feel like it might feel like I have to learn about not just the language, but cultural separations. The tickets, airplanes are really they're never cheap. And if you live on the East Coast, it's an entirely different bag because you're adding, I don't know, 8 extra hours to your trip. But people can do it. I mean, not now. Don't go now. Yeah. But back then and hopefully in the future.
Well, no, I was looking at vacations a couple years ago because I just gone to Japan, so I was like, maybe I'm looking somewhere else to go on vacation, and like it was cheaper to go to Tokyo than it was to New York City for hotels and all that kind of good stuff. It's like I might as well just go back to Japan again.
Well, okay. Actually, this is relevant because the time that you and I went last year, we chose. My wife and I chose to go to Japan because of the plane tickets, because they were cheaper, because in Japan at that time it was something called Silver Week. It's kind of like a 4-day, a short or long weekend thing. Basically, people are going out of Tokyo. They're going on day trips. They're going to Hakone, to the hot spring. So for some reason, like Silver Week area or Golden Week in May, April, May, those prices are lower than usual for if you're coming into Tokyo, if you're coming into Japan, because Japanese citizens are going to Okinawa and other nice places, and just going out of Tokyo because they live there. So
yeah, I flew on September 11th last year, and I mean, it sounds terrible, but the rates were cheaper on September 11th than they were the 10th or the 12th.
I think we might have as well. I'm not sure, but it had to have been something similar. I just got there that day, and we stayed in Okubo, and my wife went to go do something, and I went to Ichigaya, all neurotic and flustered. I'm going to be late. So, yeah. But I miss it. I want to go back soon.
Me too. I should be there now. I was going to go back again this month to go see the 5-star finals again. That was like turned into my goal, was to go see the 5-star finals every year.
Yeah, the 5-star was cool. I wrote something up on Fight Game for that show as well. I remember writing it in a haze on the plane back to the States, and I was typing it on an iPad. So I think it's good. But it was a good show, and it was the last time we saw Hana Kimura.
Yeah.
But she, like, that show was all about her. That's one of the memories I have about one of the most impressed memories I have that's just stuck in my brain. Actually, with the pen that I was telling you about earlier, I'm holding here my notes from that show that I took for the article. I'm looking at like Hana versus Konami, number 9. It's on a yellow sheet of paper that Kumisai took. But yeah, it's like, I don't know why, but those memories are really not strong, but they're really.
Oh, she was clearly the biggest star on the show. I mean,
she felt like Sasha Banks, though. She felt like really like a TV star, not just a wrestling star.
Mm-hmm.
Mayu Iwatani, a pure wrestling star, right? Kagetsu, pro wrestling star, totally. Hana Kimura had that, but something else, like pop charisma or something, pop star charisma. And I remember at that show, it was her hair. Her hair was just like so. You'll never forget that. The was kind of like braids with their pink, neon pink. They're huge, and they're whipping around. And I caught some pictures of her slamming Hazuki against the east side. What is it? The east side sign in the crowd, and her hair is whipping up in the air. And do you remember after when she won the finals? Do you remember what she called B. Priestley? She called her Beach Priestley.
Yes.
It's like she's She's awesome. Like everyone was ready. Everyone was so ready to see what would happen. We were all waiting because it wasn't like, oh, she's probably going to be famous. It was, okay, she's ready to be famous. We just have to sit and wait. And she was about to start Terrace House, I think, a couple months. I think right after that, right?
I thought she might have been filming at that time.
Yeah, it aired in January or something.
Yeah.
I don't know the details. I didn't follow the show, but I mean, the show wasn't on for that long, and she wasn't on the show for that long. But look how much she was the most talked about character. It seemed like on that show, at least one of them.
And I thought, it's like, how long is she going to be in Japan before she takes off and rules the world? Basically, is what my end thoughts that day is like, man, she's going to take over the world. Japan's not big enough for her.
Yeah, I was thinking either that or she would become the face of Stardom. You know, if Stardom was, because I think Bushiroad acquired Stardom in October, so it was pretty shortly after we saw that show.
Mm-hmm.
So the wheels were in motion, so I could have seen that too. But but on the other hand, I feel like the story's not even completely finished yet because there's a lot going on with her mother, Kyoko, and you know, it just happened. Everything just happened. We're still feeling it.
I'm putting it out there. My dream final guest for this series of the podcast is Kyoko. I really want her to be the last guest.
She's a very, very cool and interesting person. I haven't had the chance to meet her, but Fumi taught me a lot about her, and I got to learn a lot about her over the past couple of months.
And Fumi's the best too. Fumi, yeah. When I was there in March, unfortunately, my recorder crapped out halfway through, but he drove me around Tokyo, basically showing me, okay, here's this dojo, here is this dojo. He drove me to the New Japan dojo and said, here's this where they train, this and that. So Fumi was a real cool guy for me too. I got to finally meet him in March.
He's an absolute superstar. He's one of the best dudes I know. And with the Hana Kimura articles, they wouldn't be in. I have to thank Garrett Gonzalez at Fight Game, and I have to thank Fumi because they made that happen. I wrote it, but Fumi really helped me a lot. Jim Valley too. Jim Valley helped a lot too. He called the Stardom matches with Fumi last April. So
Jim was the first guest on the podcast.
That's right. Yeah.
He gave me instant credibility because it's like I had nothing, I had nobody, and he's the first guy, or not the first person I reached out to, but he's the first person that said yes to me. He'd do it. So it was real cool. He's another guy. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that I can get back on the podcast before the podcast ends.
Hope so.
Fingers crossed for him. Sending some love to Jim Valley right now.
For sure. So, yeah. Thinking about him every day. Jim, if you listen, we're thinking about you. We'll see you soon. I can hear you soon too on the Joshi Pod, hopefully.
Yes.
Again,
Jim, get well. We need you on the Joshi Pod.
But yeah, Fumi is great, and he helped a lot with the article. It'd be really cool if.
So how did you transition from fan to wanting to do more than just being a fan?
So I was attending grad school. I moved back. I was living in Japan, and then I moved back to the States.
Well, hold on, time out. How did you end up in Japan?
Oh, okay. Rewind.
Yep. Time out. Back up.
The first time I came to Japan was in 2005. I was here for 2 weeks. I was a musician. I was playing shows. I played 2 shows in Tokyo, and that was different though because I wasn't doing any wrestling. It was the first time I went to the country, and there's just a lot of different stuff going on. Later,
give us more details. What kind of music were you playing? What were you doing?
I played the first ever international death metal festival called Tokyo Death Fest 2005. I played for a band called, are you ready? It's called Mucopus. We were on a Japanese label. We were on a label called Amputated Vein out of Osaka. And they and another Tokyo label put on, they were smaller shows. The one was at Shibuya Cyclone. It's like 400 or 500 people capacity. And the pre-shows in Shinjuku was really tiny, super tiny. But that was my first experience with that. I was doing music. And then later in life, I went and got my music degree. I went to study music theory, and I got a jazz guitar performance degree. Did that. After I finished music school, I was really, 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 really burned out on music, and an opportunity came up to teach English in Japan. And I had a minor in English too, and I wanted to start. I was writing comics, and I wanted to do more English related stuff that was making me more happy. And I got the opportunity to teach for a company in Japan, and I ended up staying there for a little over 3 years. And I moved back to the States a couple of years ago to attend grad school. And when I got to grad school, I was a fan. I am a fan. I'm always watching wrestling, reading about wrestling. And I was attending grad school for book publishing. And during my time there, I was looking for projects to kind of add to my portfolio. Just if there was a chance to do wrestling related stuff, it's like, cool, whatever. And I was going to, as a student, I would do it for reasonable prices and such. And that led me to helping out with the Sabu autobiography, ghostwritten thing. That was the first real wrestling writing gig I got, and that was in 2018. And
how'd that come about?
I knew the writer. His name was Kenny Casanova. I knew him from way back in the day because when I was really young, I used to train at like a kids wrestling camp in Schenectady. It was an NGW. It was basically like it was a indie that was in Schenectady, and on Saturdays for a while they'd do something where like the kids you pay like $5 and you train for a couple hours with the local guys, and you do snapmares and take bumps on the crash pad and do really, really, really basic like wrist locks. And it was in the like late 90s too, so nobody was doing 640s or whatever. I mean, a plancha was a huge deal. So yeah, they did that, and one of the guys in charge of it, Kenny Casanova, I had known him for years, and I reached out because I knew he was helping write wrestlers' biographies, like ghostwriting them or writing or transcribing things. So I just reached out to him. I said, hey man, I'll proofread this if you want. And I looked at it and it turned into something else. So I just ended up doing that. And that was cool. And from there, a couple months later, I applied for a gig at Wrestling Observer. They had an ad out they just needed new writers. It was around the time when All In was about to happen. So there were a lot of shows were debuting. Like MLW had debuted, and ROH was really, really busy, and New Japan was really hot. And so they hired me from there, and the rest is history, as they say. Well, it's only 2 years, but it's not really history. But that's pretty much how I got started, like working in wrestling. And when I went to Japan, I just treated it like I do any of my writing jobs. Like you saw, I wrote about it, and I don't know what else to do. I think I just trained myself to not think about it and just do the work and put it out. Hope it's good. Cross my fingers. That's all I can do.
That's how I am every Thursday night when I put the podcast out. I was like, I hope this one doesn't suck.
Yeah.
Hope people don't think this one sucks.
There's no, like the only people I think, like creators that put stuff out, and if they're like, oh man, I'm awesome. This is awesome. Almost 100% of the time that thing sucks and only they like it. When I was in music school, one of my advisors told me, like, no matter what, no matter how good you get, you'll only really come about 80% as close to your vision as you tried, or as you aim for. Like, it's okay, and it's good. You're good. So, we're all in weird states, but it's cool that we're not being arrogant about it. So, yeah,
I'm the opposite. I'm always like worried about being caught as a fraud or something, that I'm not good at what I'm doing. And
no, dude, I don't know why you would say that. I've heard. Listen, there are a lot of wrestling podcasts, and the fact that you have an intro makes you really a high step above many of them. So you know how I like to think about it, because I'm kind of that way too. I think the standard in this day is really low, so that now I can jump in and contribute. It's like, well, if the standard's low, then I feel more comfortable.
And yeah, I think you take pride. I mean, I know I take pride in my work, and I'm sure you take pride in your work as well too. So that's another reason why I think I'm harder on myself, because I take a lot of pride in what I do.
Yeah, for me, it's pride / neuroticism. Like, I'm really weird. Like, I get like detail oriented. I get too, yeah. I feel like I have to get it out, but it's rooted in passion, I guess. But that might be more for like a therapist. I need to tell. So I don't need to, unless you want me to elaborate. But I'd rather talk wrestling.
So where are you living at now? What's your address? What's your home phone number?
What was Mean Gene's hotline number?
1-900-909-9900.
Yeah, you can reach me at extension 2. No, I'm in Portland, Oregon right now.
Are you guys on fire right now or no?
No, but something definitely is. It sure smells like it.
Yeah.
It's been a hell of a year. I came here because the school had the program that I was attending. That's why I'm here. And it was because when I moved here, my wife and I got married. My wife's from Japan, and I'm from New York. That's where my family is. And Portland would be, in theory, a good middle spot between New York and Japan. Because, holidays, we would have to switch. We can't go both places. So that was the impetus for that.
Mm.
And then, in Portland now it's weird because first it's COVID, and then it was like when they did the national kind of in May. What was it? They didn't say COVID was gone or anything, but the quarantine was over, right?
Mm-hmm.
Within days that's when the protests at downtown Portland started happening. So it feels like there wasn't any like hold up, or there wasn't any, what is it? There wasn't any break. It was just, I've been inside all year.
Yeah, there's no time to breathe, basically.
Yeah, and now if I go outside, I literally can't breathe. Because, I'll show you some pictures, but the Multnomah County Twitter I saw earlier today, they posted that standing outside right now for 5 minutes is equivalent to inhaling 15 cigarettes or something. I think that is a little exaggerated, but it's pretty smoky and it's gross. Like, we can't open the windows because it just smells like a campfire as soon as you open it. I don't know what's going on. So
we have the same thing going on here in San Diego as well. There's ash in the air every single day right now, and it's a mess down here too.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. So I hope it rains or just settles down soon.
So we just need rain, right?
Yeah.
So what's the wrestling scene like up in Portland?
Well, right at this exact moment, pretty non-existent. But since actually right around the time we moved here is when a company called Defy Wrestling launched around 2017, and they're based out of Seattle, but I would consider them the main. They really kind of revitalized wrestling in the Pacific Northwest over the past couple of years, because there was some like older laws in Washington about like it would be basically, I guess it was really, really expensive, like inordinately expensive to get licenses and blood tests for all the wrestlers to put on a show. It was basically impossible. I guess it had something to do with how WWF structured it in the 90s so that no other companies could run those areas. But when they started to, there are a lot of details that I'm leaving out. So Google is out there, but
the Portland WrestleCast is out there too on the Wrestling Observer.
That's right. Yeah, covering Portland. The old Portland scene is very interesting, and I learned more about it from Jim while I was here. I felt like I was walking around and he was kind of guiding me while I was listening to the podcast. I love that.
I want to go to the Bomber Hotel or whatever it is.
I guess it closed recently.
Ah.
Yeah. I just, maybe a year or so ago, I don't know if they either tore it down or it's not the Bomber anymore, but I've heard good things. But with Defy, Portland, they started coming to Portland. They started running at kind of like rock venues, not sports venues, but like the Boston Nova Ballroom, or it was Boston Nova, it was Hawthorne Theater, excuse me. Yeah, so that was getting really popular, and all the shows were really stacked, and they were filled with people, really enthusiastic people. And I would say, when I was attending those shows, that was like the prototype for AEW, because the fans are really similar. I felt like kind of more forward thinking, not forward. They want something that's not like WWE. And a lot of the people that were wrestling in Portland and Seattle, they ended up just signing with AEW later anyway. So it has that flavor, it has that alternative flavor. The last show I went to was in January, and there was Luchasaurus and Marco Stunt and Strong Hearts, Killer Cross. So there are a lot of great talent, but they're also names, and they're also cool new talent. So Defy is what I would check out, but because of everything that's going on in the Pacific Northwest, it's especially not happening. Like there was supposed to be a Defy show. It's supposed to be down the street from where I live at the Crystal Ballroom. It was scheduled for I think the 26th, but it was supposed to be with Progress. They announced a West Coast tour, Progress Defy tour, or Progress from England, but it's just things are different now. So
and Defy brings. I mean, okay. Here's what I thought Defy did. I thought they took the old PWG vibe and took it to the Northwest.
I love that. Yeah, but I've heard that though. But I heard it, so I agree with you completely, but last year at the Super J Cup in Tacoma, El Phantasmo got up on the mic and said that, but he said it in a really negative way. Let's just say. He said that all the Defy fans are just wannabe PWG fans, which I thought was an awesome heel line. But that was when he said that, I go, oh, yeah. I mean, the way you said it is much more polite and maybe more accurate. There is that, like, people just, they're hardcore fans. They know what to expect and they want top-notch stuff. They're not just casuals looking to like have a laugh. They want great wrestling and they know where to react. And for Defy, a lot of those fans are really willing or merciful. If some wrestlers botch moves or things go wrong, people don't have the vibe where they're going to swear at the wrestlers. It's not like going to shows 20 years ago. It's just a different vibe, different culture at the shows.
Now, I haven't gone to a Defy show yet. I'm going to go to a Defy show. It's on one of my bucket list things to do is to go to a show up there. But what I see on streaming, whatever, it looks like when PWG was at the small place in Reseda. That's what it reminds me. They're at the new place now, and it's a whole different PWG. But yeah, Defy reminds me of when we used to go to the shows in Reseda. And it was hot and cramped and all kinds of things like that, and the crowd was just insane from start to finish. That's what Defy reminds me of.
I could see that. I've never been to Reseda shows, but people have said similar things, and it definitely has its own flavor. I mean, the weather is different. It looks like it. The place that they usually run their shows, Washington Hall, it looks like an old, like a high school or something. It looks like it used to be something like that. But yeah, it's definitely got that, like, a lot of the same faces are going to the shows, but those faces are enthusiastic. They're having a great time. They're buying tons of merch. Everyone's buying drinks. Like, you don't see people getting fights with each other like at some sports or other wrestling events. Like, you get a good vibe when you. It's like, it feels more like a rock show than a house show. You know what I mean? And it feels like it matters then that night.
Yeah, PWG is kind of cool too, because if somebody started getting rowdy or not fitting in, they would squash that person, not literally, but they would just squash it right away and say, hey, if you want to stay here, you need to not be that way. You need to be like the rest of us are.
Yeah, there was like a culture of monitoring each other, because it's more or less if you're going to a PWG show, I don't know about now, but let's say like 2006, it's like everybody is kind of already on the same page. It's like, if you don't just casually go to a show isn't it super expensive too?
Oh, it's gotten crazy. Yeah, when I first started going, was it 12 years ago, to PWG shows? It was $25, $30 for front row. Now it's $100-something for front row. So it's a whole different ball game now.
Yeah, so it's like you're not going to get somebody now to just casually go drop $100 on a wrestling show. I mean, unless it's something special and awesome and you sell it that way. But in general, yeah. I think they have things in common, but I think PWG has. Well, I don't know. You'd probably be the one to tell. You have a better opinion than I would, because I've only seen it video. I've never been to any of the shows.
So you need to come down here. I need to go up there to watch shows.
Yeah, Hey, let's make it happen. We'll do a tour swap.
I need to take you to Tijuana too to watch a show at the Auditorio in Tijuana.
I'd love to. That's Tijuana, Arena, Mexico. I want to go to. I've had plans to go to Mexico that always get canceled. Yeah, I'd love to. I just hope that the world stops freaking out and exploding like it is right now.
Literally exploding.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even need to make this stupid joke. It's just bad. It's just bad, and I stay inside and end up watching and talking about wrestling all the time. So.
Yeah, I got a person I know tested positive today, and people I've been around recently, so I'm home for the next 2 weeks quarantining. So,
jeez. Well,
and got my test this morning. Crossing my fingers, I'm not positive.
Oh, good luck.
Yeah,
well, 2 weeks. You could do a lot of podcasting in 2 weeks. Just saying.
Let's see. I got you today. I got one after you. I've got one Monday, one Tuesday, one Wednesday. So I'm telling you, I'm going out with a bang, dude.
Okay. If I hear anything, if I get any bites, I'll pass them your way too.
Thank you. So tell me, okay, you did the theme for the Joshi Pod. Tell me about the theme for the Joshi Pod, how you decided to do what you did. I gave you a carte blanche to do whatever you wanted, and I love it. And kind of tell me what you did.
Well, when I started messing around with it, everything I made sounded stupid to me. So I was like, God, this isn't working. And for some reason, I'm like, this needs a guitar. I don't know why. I wanted to use a guitar. So I played some guitar on it, but it wasn't working. And then I'm just like, okay, how Joshi Pod, Joshi, what would most fans think when they say it says Joshi? Manami Toyota, that's fair, right? Mm-hmm. So I took her theme, I ripped her theme off YouTube into an MP3, and then I ran it through some filters at the beginning, and I added some guitar over it, and then I unfiltered it and polished it up, made it all shiny, and made it its own weird mashup Joshi Pod original tune. I wanted to give it some kind of some connection to the past somehow. And I was originally trying to do something with the bell at the beginning of All Japan Women. Did you ever watch the TV show where it's like they do a close up on the bell? It's like ding.
I love it.
I want to do something like that. Maybe we'll have a remix coming soon. I don't know. I have to
maybe for the next incarnation of it.
Yeah. What would you want to hear? You're the host of the Joshi Pod, so what do you think a Joshi fan would want to hear in a theme song?
Idol singers. I'm kidding. No.
Actually, that's a great point. That's a very good point. I didn't consider it. I can't. My voice doesn't get that high though.
I'll put a little tiny dress on, and maybe it'll come to you.
We'll see. I mean, I'm just inside. I don't got anything else to do. You never know, man. No, just kidding.
Channel your inner baby metal.
Oh, are they babies still? Aren't they legal aged metal?
It's 1, 2, 3 kid. He'll be a kid the rest of his life.
He's X-Pac.
Yeah.
He's the man. He's cool.
The Heartbreak Kid is still a kid.
Oh, God. There's a lot I want to say, but I got to remember I'm on a podcast.
Yeah. So do you enjoy mixing music? And I mean, you got the musical background. Do you enjoy mixing and using more modern type equipment to modernize some music?
Yeah, I took a long break. I didn't really plan on doing any music stuff ever, really. But when the pandemic hit, especially in the initial quarantine, I remember reading that website, The Verge, verge.com, and there was this little advertisement blog article listing a bunch of free iPad digital audio software, like synthesizers and Moog, I don't know, just cool little free things that are maybe cost $50, $75, $100 or more. If it's free, sure, I'll check it out. And then when I started checking things out on my iPad, old man Justin realized, oh my God, technology just passed me by since I graduated music school, because I graduated from university in 2012 or 2013, so it's not that long ago, but good Lord, everything in music tech is a lot different lot different. And but it's like stuff that I kind of already know. So it's been interesting, and I had the time on my hands because we're inside a lot more than usual. So yeah, it's been really interesting and kind of giving my brain some new stimulation, and it's a great way to wind down from watching 3-4 hours of wrestling. It's completely opposite part of my brain, so doing them together kind of feels good. I'm just kind of getting my rig started, restarted, and just trying to have fun with it. And if anybody needs music, I'm making tons of tunes.
Where can we find you on social media, Justin, to reach out to you?
Find me at Justin M. Knipper on Twitter. So it's at Justin M. Knipper, Knipper. For the music stuff, you can check out my SoundCloud page. I don't think SoundCloud is very cool. I think it seems lame, and people kind of tell me that it's lame, but that's where I put all my stuff because it's easiest for me. But type in Interbeing JMK. So soundcloud.com/Interbeing JMK, and you can find my stuff. I should probably, can I put the theme on there? You want me to put the theme
yeah,
on
please.
There? Yeah,
please. Yeah.
I think I remixed it. I made a second version. I think I sent it to you. So yeah. So yeah. Otherwise, and if you want to read my wrestling writing, I'm on the Observer. I cover New Japan Strong right now on the Observer website, F4W online, and
that's their stuff they're doing in North America, right?
Yeah, it's the show that it's based out of California. It's really cool. It's different from the main New Japan show, but it's showcasing a lot of West Coast talent. Danny Limelight, the Regal Twins. I'm trying to think who else. Adrian Quest was on this week. Really impressive new guys, and yeah, it's good stuff. So
yeah, Adrian Quest, Limelight and Adrian Quest, I've seen pretty much since the start of their careers down here. So yeah, they both improved a ton.
I think it's quite a few California guys. I'm not sure. I'm watching a lot of guys for the first time. I think one of Carl Anderson's trainees is there. It's a young, tall guy. It's cool. It's worth checking out if you just want a no BS, just wrestling show. It's like not unlike 205 Live, NXT UK, just an hour of wrestling, no long-term angles.
And these are a lot of the guys from the dojo in LA too, right?
Yeah, dojo guys, but you got Jeff Cobb was on this week, Kenta was in this week, Gorillas of Destiny, Finley. So get the U.S. crew and whoever couldn't make it over to Japan for the G1. And speaking of G1, I think starting next week, I haven't really announced it yet, but me and Carlos Toro from Fightful, boxing journalist, combat writer, are going to be doing a mini G1 podcast for Fight Game Media, where we cover G1 from this month into October. We'll do little mini recaps, and they'll be on the Observer, not the Observer, Fight Game website and podcast at the end of it. So look out for that.
And Garrett's a lot on Fight Game, right?
Garrett, Fight Game is Garrett's baby. That's his thing. And the flagship podcast is him and John LaRocca hosting their main thing. Yeah, we're trying to expand more and make some stuff for our YouTube page.
If they ever need a Joshi show going forward, let me know.
Oh, for sure. No, I'll talk to you after. When we're finished, I'll
I love when Garrett's on the Observer. I mean, I like Brian and Dave, but Garrett's a whole different voice, and I like to hear that sometimes too.
Garrett's the man. What can I say? Double G.
Gigi, you should call him Gigi.
Gigi, do you know what that means in Japanese, though?
I have no idea.
Gigi is kind of like grandpa.
Oh.
Well, Gigi. Yeah, Gigi. Like you would say it to your own family. You wouldn't say it to somebody else. Like it's like Nana or something. Gigi. Yeah. So I don't want to call him that. He's not that old.
Hey guys, that's our Japanese lesson for today.
Yeah.
If you want to insult an old man, call him Gigi.
I know you're gonna get me let go from Fight Game Media now. Yeah, he's awesome, and There's a lot of stuff coming up over the next couple of months on Fat Media. It's cool stuff.
So guys, I'm gonna also on the show notes. I'm gonna put the link to the articles that Justin wrote about Hana Kimura. I think it's very important to read those. This podcast has almost become a Hana Kimura tribute since she passed away, and I'm trying to find every possible way and talk to every possible person to tell us how beautiful and wonderful she was. So, and your articles were tremendous as well.
And don't forget about Kyoko Kimura, everyone, because she's a huge part of the story, and she's kicking ass despite everything that's happening.
Yeah, she's fighting a giant corporations, and she's a tough woman. She needs all of our support.
And she is a part of Hana too, so it's like Hana's here.
I couldn't imagine being in her shoes. I really couldn't.
But she had to live her life. Only Kyoko Kimura lived that life. Because if you read in part 2, read where she's been all over the place, and she's inspiring. She's fearless. She doesn't care. She's a badass, like a real life badass, not a pro wrestling badass, but a real. Damn.
Yeah, she is.
Nice.
All right, Justin, thank you so much for being on the Joshi Pod, talking about the origin story, talking about your story. Maybe if Joshi Pod Part 2 comes out sometime in the future, we'll have you back on again and with a new theme song.
Sure, all kinds of things. Maybe a whole album. I don't know. If anybody's got requests, tweet me.
Can we do like a wrestling album, like with Hulk Hogan and the guys, and we can do our own Land of 1,000 Dances?
So, yeah, we could do volumes of it. We could do Japanese things. The sky is the limit, and we're inside. Hey, hit me up in this quarantine 2 weeks. We'll do something funky.
That would be awesome. Justin, again, thank you so much. A year ago today, he and I met each other and I got to meet Emi for the first time that day, and got to bond over Ichigaya Chocolate Square and the birth of the Joshi Pod. Well, the seed was planted. The birth wasn't quite yet, but the seed was planted that day. And Justin was there to tell the tale as well.
I can attest for sure.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being on.
Thank you for having me. This was awesome.